Thank you for joining us on another episode of Ask the Experts right here on Talk 1370. This is a show about your health, your life, and much more with our rotating cast of experts. To catch up on past episodes, you can visit talk1370.com/experts. And of course, if you would like a question answered on our show, feel free to email us, asktheexperts@talk1370.com. So joining me in the studio today is President of Townbridge Homes, Aaron Levy. Aaron is a conscious land developer and a green home builder here in sunny Austin, Texas. Aaron, welcome back to the program. I understand our topic today is green homes. Would you let our listeners know what the term green means to a homeowner or to a home buyer?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for having me again, of course. Initially, when you are describing a home as a green home, you would associate it with environmentally friendly aspects, sustainable qualities of construction. There's a number of things that also qualify as green. Something that's truly built as green also has a social and an economic benefit as well. Other things to think about: a green home does have specific construction practices, the product selection of material, how it's sourced. That would differ from, general construction practices. And we can elaborate more on that later. Something to think about, though, since green over the last number of years has become more and more popular as a term, if you're somebody who's interested in buying a home and you are going to be more conscious of your purchase and you're going to look for a green home, you do want to be mindful of what that means. Do your research on who is the builder, on what you're actually getting out of the home, to make sure that it's not just a marketing tactic.
Yeah, I was about to say the term green's been around for a long time, kind of like when the term HD came around and everyone started marketing that in front of everything that they were selling. So what are some of the things that you should expect from a green home?
Yeah, there's a number of things. First and foremost, a green home should be a healthier home, meaning that we spend most of our time indoors, and there's a lot of aspects to green construction that are focusing on creating a healthier indoor air quality and indoor living environment. And I've discussed this previously on other shows, but some things to think about are the VOCs, volatile organic compounds. Those could be found in paints, solvents, cabinetry, woodwork. It depends on what's in the home, but all of those could have different levels, of which ideally you're looking at a home that has very little to none. Humidity has been an increasing consideration in the indoor air quality of a home, and finding ways to properly ventilate and eradicate humidity in the home so you're not building up the potential for any moisture in the house. Other things, the efficiency of the home, it does have a long-term savings. You should be seeing lower utility bills. This is going to be an effect of a tighter house, something that is going to be a tighter envelope, which is going to fight the elements of the exterior, especially here. We're talking about heat in a colder environment, obviously the cool weather. The lower use of water, a number of things that go into the home that could be a factor on those utility bills. We can get into that as well. Just smarter design of space. Sometimes you can walk into a house or, any kind of indoor space and realize that you just subconsciously you can feel that there's not a proper use of design to create an efficient space. Because really, you could have a giant house, but you also have to maintain that house, meaning like you have to heat it and cool it. You don't necessarily need those spaces to be as large as you would think in your mind. Other things that you would expect out of a green home: materials. What types of materials? Are they low maintenance? Are they durable? Where are they sourced from? Are they renewable sources? Are they locally sourced? Even stuff down to the lumber. Where's the lumber coming from? Is it part of the sustainable forestry? Just other things to consider that would be put into a green home outside of typical construction practices.
Are green homes, are they more expensive?
Yeah, on average, they are a little bit more expensive. I mean, just the cost to build them is going to be more expensive. So you should expect maybe a 10 to 20% increase. But you also have to think about it as, your long-term costs. And if it's going to save you money on a regular basis, really that there's a payback there. And that's why it's a wise investment and worth considering.
Would you say it's more like buying an energy efficient light bulb?
Absolutely.
So it costs a little bit more upfront than the regular one, but it lasts a lot longer.
Right.
Or
I
it
mean,
saves you
and
a
I
long
mean, just
time.
as a perfect example, a light bulb, an LED light bulb, you shouldn't have to change it for 10 years. You know, so when people see the price tag at the store, they're thinking about how many bulbs they would be replacing over the course of 10 years and their energy of just like going to the store to buy another bulb and taking the time to change it. I mean, all those things are considerations.
And so is this the way homes are just going to be built now?
Yeah, it is. And it's moving that direction as a function of just, you know, we're all woke, as people are saying now.
Yeah.
But just like the realization that we have to be more considerate of the impacts that we have individually as a society, construction especially. And, you know, we're pretty fortunate here. The city of Austin has always been on the front end of staying on top of codes, energy codes, and building in the city of Austin. You should expect that you're getting a higher quality, more in the direction of a green home. Maybe it's not rated, but it could still have the same qualities here in Austin.
Yeah, and just even if you go browsing around any home appliance, maybe just home improvement store, like you
Right.
can see everything has like an Energy Star sticker on there.
Absolutely.
Everything, every dishwasher is trying to save you more by using less water. So why would my bills be lower in a green home?
Well, I mean, like you just said, is a great example. Energy Star rated appliances, first and foremost, you know, something that you're using on a constant basis. They're tested. They are, when something is Energy Star, it's supposed to be performing above standard. So it could be a less use of energy. It could be a less use of water. So other high efficiency things that could be in the home, your HVAC system. I mean, here in Texas, we're constantly battling the heat. So something that, and we've talked about this on other shows as well, but something that might have a higher SEER rating, you know, would produce a greater result for less energy. Same thing like we just said, LED lighting. I mean, you know, the amount of energy it takes for LED lighting, or, you know, proper design of a home. Like we were saying, smart design. If you design a home smart to have more daylight, you don't need to turn your lights on as much. Or if you're using, you know, passive shading, so whether there's trees on the site or the way that you orient where the windows are to avoid that direct solar heat gain into the house. Those are all ways to help reduce that as well as natural ventilation, you know, whether it be through placement of operable windows, doors, you know, that kind of thing, where you can actually let the elements work in your favor. You know, places you can save on your water bills, all the fixtures in the home, faucets and toilets and tubs and stuff like that. Everything the EPA does a rating system called WaterSense. It's similar to like Energy Star in that like these things have been tested and shown to work at above standard quality. You know, so then a low flow, meaning that you're using less water using that same faucet that you would if it wasn't rated. Or, you know, a toilet. A toilet is something that toilets use up 25%.
A lot of water.
Yeah, 25% of your water usage in the house. So, you know, if you're a traveler and you've been to foreign countries, you may be more accustomed to seeing dual flush, you know, and it's becoming more and more popular here, obviously. And we like to install dual flush toilets because it's just an automatic, immediate, you know, you're connected with the fact that you're saving the water if you know, like, oh, I'm doing, you know, flushing a number one.
Yeah.
Or things like in irrigation is another water saver, drip irrigation, you know, thanks to the technology developed by the Israelis in time. But drip irrigation with direct drops of water in the places that you need it rather than just spraying, you know, large water saving, especially we're so dry here a lot of the time and we only get rain so often. So, you know, that's a big water saver as well.
What about solar panels? I thought as a kid, I would see solar panels on every home by the time I became an adult.
Yeah.
And it still is
Absolutely.
rare as ever.
No, and we're, you know, we in Townbridge, we actually have made a move to installing solar on all of our homes. But in general, yes, that's what's happening. Actually, City of Austin just adopted an ordinance that's requiring all new construction to at least be solar ready. So solar ready, meaning that at least there's a certain amount of roof square footage and orientation that could be used for solar. So it does have to be designed to accommodate. And then obviously solar, we're a grid tied city here. So if you have solar in your home, you still have to be tied into the city grid for electric, but what they'll also do is pay you for the electricity that you produce, and you wind up getting credit back for that. So sometimes you could wind up with a credit and just be accruing credits until you hit peak seasons, whether it's the middle of the summer, middle of the winter when you're using the most energy, and then you could wind up whittling down at your balance of credit. But yeah.
And so, speaking about money, is there a financial value to a green home?
Yeah, absolutely. And like I mentioned before, yes. So up front, you are going to think about the fact that green construction is going to have, 10, 20% increase when you're looking at the initial cost. But you do have to consider something what we call a life cycle cost. And like I said before, it's more a consideration of what's your long-term cost. Yeah, yes, maybe you pay more up front, but if you're saving money on a monthly basis on all of those bills, you have to do your calculation and look at it and say at what point in time is that payback, and then at that point I'm more than just saving, and it is a worthwhile investment, because that's what it is. When you buy a home, it is an investment, so you are looking for a return on your equity. And some people in the city of Austin, we have a pretty common thought process here where sometimes people just want to make the choice, forgetting about the fact that does it cost more or not. They just feel that this is the right decision to make.
Aaron, our time always goes by so quickly when you're here. We're already wrapping up the first segment. We're going to step aside for a quick break, but when we come back, we're going to continue our conversations on green homes, and I'm going to ask a question on how you can verify if a home is actually green. We have that and much more coming up right here on Ask the Experts on Talk 1370. Welcome back to Ask the Experts right here on Talk 1370. Today we're sitting down with Aaron Levy, the president of Townbridge Homes. Today's topic, we're speaking about green homes in general. So if anything piques your interest, if you want to get in contact with Aaron and his team, you can visit their website, townbridgehomes.com. Again, that's townbridgehomes.com, or you can give them a call, 512-800-4534. Aaron, before we left, we were talking about the financial value to a green home. Mm-hmm. But how can one of our listeners verify if a home is actually green?
That's a great question, because like I said earlier, you do want to make sure if you're looking at what somebody is marketing as a green home, that it in fact is a green home. And there's a number of rating systems that are out there. Energy Star has its own, whole house rating system. The HERS system, it's a home energy rating system. LEED, which people may be a little bit more familiar with, the USGBC, the U.S. Green Building Council, has developed what they call Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design. And then locally here, Austin Energy has the Austin Energy Green Building Program. And we, as Townbridge Homes, we actually do everything. We rate everything under Austin Energy, their Green Building Rating Program. They're actually an industry leader for the rating systems. They've been doing it for decades. And when it came time for LEED to develop their home rating system, they leaned on what we've been doing here in Austin. So, when you're purchasing a home, make sure that somebody can provide you with that information, a rating certificate. That could also give you the insight as to what they are rating based on, what the requirements are to meet certain ratings, whether it's star ratings, 1 through 5 stars, or however, gold, silver, in the LEED program. And then another thing too is if you're going to buy a home, you would want to make sure that there's been an energy test and a report provided, and that's going to be testing of the mechanical system, the envelope of the home for any infiltration of thermal transfer. I mean, and those things, we want to be most conscious of here in Texas, again, because all we do is battle heat on a constant basis.
Could you give our listeners a little insight as into what the Austin Energy Green Building Program looks like?
Sure, I can give you an idea of like what some of our practices are.
Yeah.
Because since we do that, there is an extensive rating system, and there's a number of criteria to meet with minimum requirements to meet different ratings. We always attempt to do a minimum 3-star rating, although we often are achieving enough points for a 4 or 5-star, but you have to have specific items in place to receive that rating, even if you have enough points per se. But to give you an example of some of the things we do, to meet some of that, they require a minimum of 50% of your construction waste being recycled. And obviously, the construction industry is one of the major industries that is a large contributor to waste globally. But we actually we have been achieving closer to an 80% construction waste recycling on our jobs, so we're pretty proud of that. Some other things, not just recycling your waste, but reducing the amount of material you even bring on site. So there's techniques you can do in construction. Framing, for example, there's techniques out there, something called advanced framing, where as long as it is designed and engineered appropriately, you can space your framing studs on a 24-inch center instead of 16. That actually reduces a lot of lumber. It doesn't sound like much, but it does, and it increases the amount of insulation that you get into your wall system. So you now are creating a more insulative envelope. Other things in framing, just for example, since we're talking about it, some people call it a California or a 3-stud corner. And what that does is it opens up a pocket at the actual corner of the house for insulation to tuck into, rather than in traditional framing. Typically, that would be a series of studs all nailed together. And when you have studs, the wood framing does not have the same thermal quality as insulation. So obviously, in those corners, they would become hot corners. Another way to save on lumber would just be the header sizing, things that are transferring loads above windows and doors. Sometimes people just use 2x12s everywhere, but if you size them appropriately and use a 2x6, you're immediately using half as much lumber. So, those are ways to save. We also do things like we want to make sure that all of our waste is being properly disposed. So when you pour concrete, an example of pouring concrete, a lot of times you'll see people just kind of dump it on the ground, whatever's left, and then they pick it up later. Well, concrete is extremely acidic, and it's not good for the for groundwater. So what we do is we have a service that comes out and brings out what they call a washout pan. All that goes into there, they actually haul it off and recycle the concrete material. So it's not only better for the condition of the ground where we're doing construction, but in turn, we're recycling that product as well. Same goes for paints and solvents. We want to make sure that we're dumping them into proper locations for them to be hauled off and disposed of properly. We've made it a shift actually in the last 2 years where we said that we were going to stop using natural gas as a fossil fuel. And I actually just heard a commercial the other day of like how wonderful natural gas is, and it's it's an energy saver and it's great. It's so clean. But we all know the effects of drilling and what's going on to people's water across the world, really.
Yeah, where those faucets catch on fire.
Exactly. You've seen some
I've
of those
seen some
specials,
videos,
so.
yeah.
Yeah, so some of that is, like we said before, maybe moving into renewable energy sources, whether it's putting solar on your home, but then you can do other things to shift away as well. If we're not going to be cooking with gas, we've been moving towards induction cooking, which is it's been around for a while, but it's becoming more popular, and it's much more efficient than gas is, than electric is. It uses magnets. It's really a great product. We also want to make sure, as a builder, that we minimize the impact on the site that we're building. So we try to retain trees as much as possible. We protect those. We protect the natural landscape. If we're doing a job on a large property and we only need a certain area to actually use for construction, we will protect all that native stuff and basically leave it natural. And then also even just the selection of site, rather than driving 10 miles out of town where, land may be cheaper, but it's not as environmentally conscious to just continually expand. We want to fill in the holes, we want to redevelop, and that's what we would call infill construction. Another common practice in green construction would be just the selection of material. And we kind of tapped on this a little bit earlier, but where you're sourcing it, is it renewable material? Does it have any recycled content? In general, I like to think of this as a whole as more of what I would call, quote unquote, conscious construction, not just green.
Aaron, you mentioned that a green home would have social benefits as well. So how could a green home benefit society?
Yeah, so as we mentioned, it does have an environmental and economic benefit to home buyer, homeowner, and society in general. But some other social benefits could be things like the improved environmental quality, neighborhood restoration, reduction of health risks from pollutants associated from buildings and their energy usage, and another way, really, if it benefits society is a knowledge transfer. I mean, it's again like we said, the quote unquote woke, and how people are starting to become, more aware of knowledge as we're gaining so much information, and the growth and that general understanding and the collective movement towards a better future. In relation here to construction. And like I said before, improved environmental indoor environmental qualities, the attributes of the homes and the buildings themselves, they could be healthier, but they also do create a psychological and a social experience, and it could be a positive experience if it's designed appropriately. And like I just said, being healthier as a society, I mean, we're going to be healthier because we spend most of our time indoors. And there's something known as a sick building syndrome. Basically, you get symptoms, headaches, fatigues, dizziness, asthma, symptoms of asthma. All this is related to a poor indoor air quality. So as we're constantly improving our techniques of construction, we're basically weeding that out.
Okay, Aaron, we have time for just one last question.
Sure.
So when describing your practices as a green builder, what do you mean by conscious construction?
Like I said, it's something that goes beyond just the practice of construction technique and how it relates to our company as a business. I was actually pretty inspired by the conscious capitalism movement, which was co-founded actually by John Mackey here of Whole Foods. And he just goes into and demonstrates how there's major companies out there, for example, Whole Foods, Southwest Airlines, Google, Patagonia, you name it, Costco, but they've built their businesses on these four major principles. One is that they have a higher purpose. Two is that there's a stakeholder integration. So, whether there's true stakeholders, or you just call it employees if you want to as well, conscious leadership in the company and a conscious culture and management of the company. So for us as a builder, we think of it that we need to take a holistic approach, to how we design the projects we do, how we develop them, the construction techniques, and then all the aspects of how we interact in our business, whether it's with our vendors, our contractors, our home buyers. It's really important that we do it with a conscious approach, mainly because we see it as our civic duty. If we're in this position to be builders, then we want to make sure that we're doing the right thing to contribute back to society.
Aaron, I want to thank you again for joining us on the program.
Thank you.
Again, that's Aaron Levy, the president of Townbridge Homes. To find out more information about Townbridge Homes, you can visit their website, townbridgehomes.com, and give them a call, 512-800-4534. Don't go anywhere. We have more Ask the Experts coming up right here on Talk 1370.